evening, everybody. Bishop, would you do the honors, please?
Sure. Let's pray. Appreciate it, Father Lord. Thank you once again being able to serve this great community. Bless the decisions. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, good evening. Welcome to our City Council meeting, City of Jacksonville, June 6th, 2024. And we will have roll call, please.
Councilmember Dietz.
Here.
Bolden.
Here.
McCleary. Sansing.
Here.
Ray.
Here.
Mashburn.
Here.
Moss.
Here.
Twitty.
Here.
Kinman.
Here.
Raines.
Here.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
I have one absent, sir.
Okay, we are good. We have a quorum. We are free to proceed. Before you, you've got the minutes from our May 16th meeting. You can be ready for those next time for approval at our next scheduled meeting. But right now, entertain a motion to accept the minutes from our May 2nd meeting. Good. Motion and multiple seconds. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed by nay? Thank you. The consent agenda you have before you. If there's no questions or anything there, entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda. Motion.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed by nay? All right, moving down to general business. Tonight we got public hearings of the approval of the CDBG 2023 Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report. That's a mouthful. Michelle Spencer, would you like to come address, please?
Spread myself out a little bit. Happy, beautiful, blessed Thursday. First day of the NBA Finals. I don't know about
Go Mavs.
you all, but yeah, I am looking forward to 7:30, so I won't keep you all too long. I wanted to go over the Consolidated Annual Performance Evaluation Report. It is complete. You have it before you. We actually had public comment period during the April 15th through the April 30th. We actually had one comment that I have inserted in your drafts. We discussed that actually thoroughly, myself and the individual, and I did defer him over to the mayor, engineer, as well as the economic development director. So going forward, we actually had a few corrections that I had to update as of June the 3rd, and I can actually go over those, or I can send my corrections around so you all can take a look at them. Which do you prefer?
I like to look at it.
Okay. And what I'll do, I'll go over some of the accomplishments and break it down into what that money looked like for going out of our general funds for CDBG. We had a housing and rehab actual project that had finalized by the time I got here. However, it left the residents' walls wide open. She had several plumbing issues that caused plumbing issues in several different walls in her home, but she was getting a lot of the airways and things not keeping her heat in during the winter months, so she actually ended up needing to have those drywalls put in and plaster put in, which it was repaired, and that was about $800. That is the smallest amount that I actually paid out last year. Moving forward, we had our COVID program that actually covered rental, utility, and food assistance. We assisted 37 individuals experienced hardship. That was a total of $40,141. Moving forward, we had our utility assistance. You may see on your summary it says water. However, there were some executive decisions made as far as the assistance. This assistance was monies that were suspended by one of our subrecipients that had our public services. The previous director decided that when she did her audit that this individual organization was not expending the funds in a expedient time frame, and they were sitting on over $17,000 for a 2-year span. So we had to actually pull those monies back, and they were put in a fund for myself to have to do public service. So I started accepting applications from residents that were in dire straits with their utilities, and we have several of them during the year that had water bills, but on top of that had electricity bills and also gas bills that were up there high. Now this is separate from the CV funds, which you had to have actually COVID or something associated with COVID in order to get those funds or apply for those funds. So with that being said, we spent out, it says $44,973, and during one of my public meetings yesterday, I realized that I had made an error in that number, and it's actually a much smaller number. It's $5,416.98. So that is not included in the overall funds of the 119 for the total of the year that we spent for CDBG last year, but it is monies that are there to be able to assist individuals with their water bills
Can you
moving
say that
forward.
amount again, please?
$5,416.98. And then moving forward, we had emergency shelter for some homeless and displaced individuals. I get a lot of these calls. However, I have to look at what is the immediate situation going on with this individual. Are they just homeless because there may be some drug-related issues? They may not be trying to move forward in their life. Are they really in an immediate situation where they may be displaced due to their home being damaged during a tornado, or they may be waiting on that home to open up for them and they needed a little bit of time in between and didn't want to be on the street. My main goal is not to have another person on the street. So with that being said, we actually assisted 6 families instead of individuals, which totaled a total of $1,793.02. And so moving forward, we hope to actually help to get those funds spent because we still have about $7,000 left in the ones that we brought back from the organization that we're not expending. So it's still a bulk of money, and that will go to the individuals dealing with water issues, needing to have water payments made, and also with this past winter, we saw a lot of individuals that actually had pipes to burst in their homes. They may be homeowners, and they could not afford those $1,000 bills that racked up pretty quickly during those days that they were had the busted pipes, and et cetera. So those funds will be probably exhausted over this year, I'm thinking. The senior center facility improvements totaling $20,002.04. This was the senior center midway through the year last year. Their HVAC system went out, which caused a lot of issues for the seniors. They were not able to have seniors in the facility for a while, and so we sort of went into an emergency situation to be able to assist them, and they were able to get an HVAC system in there and get it cooled off, and seniors were able to return to the center. The youth center, which is Jacksonville Boys and Girls Club, we actually had funds for them to have their equipment outside to be refurbished. There were some things that I think had broken, and this was a bill that rolled over from the previous year, and they were able to get those equipments updated for the youth. So that totaled $24,971.23. Of course, we have general and rehab administration costs, and that totaled $34,450. There's other things down, but as a total, we did reach the $119,000 or that for the year as a total. One thing I'm really I'm really excited about, and I was happy, it filled my heart, was the donations that we received during the year when the tornado hit. We had a amount come in about 20,000, 22,000, and we had several applicants that had called in who had situations with their home where their actual insurance would not cover their things that had happened at their homes. One being electrical surge caused their HVAC system to actually go out with the electrical surge. It hit the home and caused everything to go haywire. They lost their HVAC system. Another family actually dealing with the tornado going right over their home caused their shingles and things to just fly off. Well, insurance wouldn't cover that for whatever reason. They weren't covered. And we had one that's close to my heart. This individual was disabled. She heard the tornado, the sirens were going off. She wasn't able to get to the center to be covered. She had to make her way to her restroom. She was able to get to her toilet. She sat down on the toilet, and everything went crazy. Her toilet lifted up, shifted, and caused the flooring underneath her to buckle. And so with that being said, she thought that was something she could live with, because after she sent it to her insurance company, they said, no, we're not paying for that. So she was left with this wobbly toilet, and she had a knee that was bad. So she called me, and I said, well, let me look into this, because it went under rehab, but because it was tornado involved, it was sort of something that wasn't covered under the CDBG program. So she was able to actually get not only the toilet, they had to tear out all of her floorboards. They found out that the plumbing had come loose underneath her house, and it caused all kind of damage underneath. Now this was, of course, it happened in March, but this was later on in the year, September, October, when she found out all the issues. So she was able to get toilet, flooring, and throughout her bathroom, get carpentry, all that done, and it totaled the amounts you see on the summary, which her total was $6,067. The damage to the roof was $4,000, and the tornado storm relief for the electrical surge was the largest for the HVAC system, which was $7,607. One thing I want to impress to you all is that these individual families were so appreciative of being able to have this done and not have, because they wouldn't have been able to have it done if it wasn't for those funds being donated. So they wanted you all to know that they really appreciate that ability to be able to say, now I have this, not be a burden on me. So moving forward. That's the update for actually the CDBG CAPER. Does anyone have any questions for me so far before I move on to the updates for the 2024? No? No? Okay. So this year, our 2024 annual action plan, we have been allocated $230,739, which is an increase of $2,770 from last year. We have a deadline date of August the 16th to have everything into federal government. We will have a citizen comment period, most likely the June 24th, but I may push it out another week to the last Friday or so of the month of June. It will run for 30 days. It will be advertised in the Leader as well as on our website. So during that time, we're hoping to reallocate 2018 to 2023 funds, which is in a total of $412,593.07. Excuse me, you all. And so that's a big chunk of change when you're looking at over the 5 years that it has accumulated. And what these dollars are, you all, is unobligated funds. We have to obligate funds, and we have funds that we don't obligate, or the activity did not go through. With that being said, when I did all the reconciliations that I spoke to you all about last year, I found that there were 2018 up until 2022 of unobligated funds that were just sitting there. Now, I don't have the wherewithal to actually sit on funds, because one thing I know about HUD and the federal government is that if you don't use it, you will lose it. So I've reached out to my counterparts in different departments to see where we could actually reach into these funds and expand in the Sunnyside area and the low to moderate income areas to be able to assist with some of the needed things that are going on in the community that I've had folks call me about. And we've had a good outcome from individuals saying, well, we can work on this, possibly is this an eligible cost? So I'm gonna take all the suggestions, and during this time to get all the action plans worked up, I'm gonna go and see what is an eligible cost and what's an uneligible cost. And then once we find out what we can actually spend those funds on, I'll come back to you all in August with the list and everything, and we will go from there as far as getting those projects kicked off, because we are talking about over $400,000 on top of this year's allocations. So this year's allocations break out to be administration and public service have a cap. We have every year there's a cap of 20% for administration and 15% for public service. So those two together take a bit of chunk out of it, but we have public improvement. I allotted 13% to public improvement because we're going to look heavily on the unobligated funds to go toward public facility and public improvement. So I kept that at a percentage that was manageable. Neighborhood revitalization, $11,537. Economic development, $4,615. Housing and rehabilitation, 45%, and that's usually the bulk of the percentages because we have a lot of home repairs, and with expenses on supplies and all that going up, those totals usually need to stay around that 45 to 50% range. And of course, the reallocation of the unobligated funds, those funds are going to be up there as well as far as for the housing rehab, because that's a lot of the funds that these unobligated dollars were supposed to go for. So with that being said, we've had public hearings so far, public meetings. We had one on June the 4th, which was Tuesday. It was a good meeting. I had one individual to show up, and we had a good one-on-one conversation about what he felt as his views on some things that he wanted to see possibly over in the Sunnyside area. We had two on yesterday, one at the Towers and then one at the Housing Authority. And the biggest and the best for me is when I go to the Towers. That's a good group of folks, and they have their ideas and they express them. Some of them are very outspoken, but they get those conversations going and they tell us what their needs are. So between those three, I have put out some surveys to actually pose different people in the community, and so I'll pull together a list of what the eligible costs are and the uneligible costs, and that'll be worked up into the plan. So that actually concludes my summary. Just one more thing, if you all need to reach me, I will be out next week from Monday to Friday at a conference in Massachusetts for rehab, housing, leadership, etc., for the duration of next week. But I will be back working on this project and the plan and everything on the following Monday. So are there now any questions?
I'd like to make a comment.
Okay.
Appreciate everything you're doing. You're doing an outstanding job. Also keeping the community involved, and you do contact when you need help. So really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Impacting those families is very important in these positions.
Yeah, thank you.
Also, for any other meetings you may have, if we could get it on that digital sign here in the city, for people drive by, they'll be aware of it, especially over by the park.
Yeah.
It would help if the city could do that. But thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you. You're welcome.
I have a question.
Okay.
In the report, it talks about the backpack program was placed on hold. Will we be restarting that program with some of these reallocated funds?
Yes,
deal.
definitely. It's needed. I am hoping to reach out to a lot of the schools that are on the younger side in the low to mod. That backpack program actually existed with the Jacksonville Boys and Girls Club, and I think that would be a good start to it, but there are other schools with the need, and so that'll be a program that we'll kick off before back to school this year.
Speaking on the Jacksonville Boys and Girls Club, again, thank you for your report. I appreciate all of the money that was spent for the Boys and Girls Club, but as from my personal work and service over there, they definitely need an HVAC system. They have leaks. They have a lot of things that should be addressed, and I'm just looking forward to seeing that.
You will see that. Mr. Boone and I have been in conversations, and so he's already sent me the list of items. I know the bathrooms need some attention, as well as the HVAC system. Now, what's going on over there is that their HVAC system, the way the two estimates were, and I'm pulling this out of my mind, and I've slept a couple of times since I've had that, but it was how the gym is made, and that the ducts and everything are not pulling the air up the proper way. So there's going to have to be a reducting on top of maybe getting one additional unit. But the unit sizes that they currently have are supposed to be working efficiently and effectively, where it would cool that center off better. But one more additional they did recommend to be purchased. But the reducting is going to be needed, where it'll be better feasible. You can get to the systems better and repair when needed. So that's in the works.
Amazing. Thank
Yeah,
you.
you're welcome. Any others?
Anybody else?
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
Michelle.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
You-
Next, resolution, or Michelle, that was both of your sections?
Yes, that's
Okay.
both of them.
Discussion, resolution 848, approving the agreement for planning services with Garver.
Mayor, I move we read resolution 848.
All right, I have a motion to read 848 and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed by nay?
Resolution 848, a resolution approving and granting authorization for the City of Jacksonville to enter into an agreement for planning services with Garver LLC and for other purposes.
All right, discussion. Adam, you're here, please. You can explain share what you've got here.
Sure. So this is a resolution to move forward the contract. So y'all looked at the RFQ, I believe last month. So back in March, we advertised, put an open solicitation out for request for qualifications for planning, on-call planning services. We had three companies pick up application packets. One responded with, which was with Garver, and we are seeking to move forward with the on-call services contract. So this is, like I said, an on-call services contract. So it's not engaging any one project. It's just it's another. It would give me another tool in my toolbox for planning services. You know, some of the things we could use the planning services for that I've mentioned in the past. Kind of a high-level look at our existing code of ordinances, just to kind of help us resolve some conflicts, some outdated language, some improper references to job titles and stuff where we needed assistance with updates to several of our comprehensive plans, land use, transportation, sidewalks. Those are all well outdated, but those are, the planning documents that we have to use through the planning commission and zoning and stuff, and goes towards even some of our grant applications and stuff on road classifications and things like that. So that's something that we have a need for, kind of outside services. Provide guidance on public hearing processes and review of some of the ordinances that we've had that we need to move forward on lately. I think Mr. Dietz has the short-term rentals discussion later. That's one. Fencing. We've had some code enforcement ordinances that reach over into the planning and zoning code, that kind of overlap there. But to kind of give you a background what city planning is, if you're not familiar, a city planner has a lot of knowledge and background in municipal planning law and processes, the planning and zoning go through, so a lot of these things I'm reasonably comfortable with, but I don't always get into the deep end of these from my engineering background. So we do have access to Municipal League. We do have access to Metro Plan. Those are just simple tools in my toolbox. But Garver, and I've invited Mr. James Walden here tonight. He's kind of the lead planner at Garver. If we do have any other questions, but so it's we intend to use those in those circumstances where we need a little bit deeper forensic approach to it. Like I said, these ordinances that we're looking at now, I'm going to pull kind of a statement from Jimmy Oakley. I can do a lot of things pretty good. I can do a few things really good. I'm not in a position right now. City still needs me in a position where I do a lot of things pretty good right now. So if I have a guy like James that can kind of fill in the gaps, James, I need you to take a sustained high level look, and he's not being pulled 5 different directions with sanitation issues and potholes and things like that. So that's kind of the intent, the purpose of what this contract is. So budget wise, so this I've already have a budget line item for consulting services. So this would come out of that. So I certainly don't intend to engage them in all these activities at one time, because I don't have time to manage those. But bringing James on, he'll help us do some of that stuff. One of the other things is we need to amend our planning area boundary. We've got when the ordinance was made for the planning area boundary, it went to the municipal, what's maximum we could take 1 mile out. There's overlapping areas, jurisdictional areas with Sherwood and stuff that we've never really addressed. There's areas that we have no business serving, would never annex. They're within that 1 mile that we just need to take out. Because right now, I mean, we've had letters, we've even had to issue letters to the adjoining cities that we don't observe planning in these areas. And for good reason, we don't need to, but we need to do that officially. So hopefully he's going to help us with those kind of things. But be glad to answer any questions. Be glad to call him up and let him kind of go into more in depth on things he can do. This is an a la carte type contract. So.
Okay, I've got some real, if you're talking about just planning, if you're talking about just planning services, this looks like it covers way more than just planning services.
I mean, Garver's a big firm. I mean, all I intend to do is planning services. It's an on-call services. So, they're starting their boilerplate. They're going to put basically and give us an hourly rate on any service that might need. So this is not an engineering contract by any means. We've got outstanding RFQs on engineering services. And I plan to do an updated one on engineering. So this is specifically for planning services, but and there probably is some line items in there that they have for GIS work and stuff, but that's all kind of in the planning purview, but it's not for design of roadways or anything.
From the standpoint of working with the Planning Commission for 31 years, I can tell you that this will be a great benefit for the city of Jacksonville and the Planning Commission.
Okay, I can hear that. I just I like Jacksonville taxpayer money spending
Sure.
in Jacksonville, And
Well, and
this
you-
looks like it covers, this, what would you give us, that they, I reckon that Garber gave us, covers way more than what you discussed.
Sure. Well, and like I said, it's an hourly rate contract, so it covers everything that could, it's, since we didn't define a scope, now, we could certainly solicit for each one of these projects. But these are relatively small things, so it's kind of cumbersome to do that. So just the approval in RFQ, I don't know how to say it any other way. You're not, take my word, it's not, I'm not trying to sneak something in on you, as far as engineering or anything like that. This is specifically for planning services. And that is, there's a broad range of stuff in planning services. So, James could probably speak more in depth. And if you've got any specific issues, maybe with line items, we could certainly define that scope down to the, this is intended to be used for planning services and not design services. I'm certainly comfortable with.
The resolution says, planning services.
Right.
This covers way more than planning services.
Right.
I just want to know.
Yeah, no, it's not the intent. I assure you, it's not the intent to mind sneak under. It's just, it's hard to, when you're a firm that big, you don't know what might be entailed in, there's some drafting, GIS, there's lots of stuff that planning could encompass. So
we've recently experienced an upsell to the city of Jacksonville. I'm just trying to make sure we're not going through another upsell.
No, I understand.
To the city of Jacksonville that's going to cost taxpayers money.
Right. And back to your point about Jacksonville money in Jacksonville. So, there's not a lot of city planning. City planners work at a municipal level. They don't work for the developer, level. So typically the only firms that you're going to see that do are the Garvers, the Crafton Tolles, the Jacobs, and then the out of state. The ones that picked up information packets were Garver, Crafton Toll, and an out of state firm, Deltec or something like that. So that you're not going to see. We don't have any local city planning firms. So like Bond, for example, they provide engineering, and yes, I understand what they do could be called planning and subdivision planning, but this is municipal planning. So zoning, in particular, James in particular, I worked with James 10, 12, maybe 15 years. How long have you been around, James? So worked with James at Cabot for several years. James started under Jim Von Tunglen, the Urban Planning Associates. Jim is now the Municipal League city planner. And he's, like I said, he's another tool in our toolbox that we call. But urban planning eventually transitioned to Garver. But I trust James and his team of planners there. Work with them. I can talk with them. And I want to be fair to James. James has never denied any answer. Anytime I've ever called him, he's freely given me information. But I want to at least give him the opportunity to, work for us in a professional capacity on things that I'm just not comfortable with.
I'd like to ask a question.
Yes, sir.
In listening to your presentation, you said you're too basically loaded down, that you need this. Is that correct?
I wouldn't say, I don't consider myself loaded down.
Well,
I've got a lot of hats right now.
Well, that's what you said. That means loaded down.
Right.
And that's why you feel that we need that. Is that correct?
Well, that, and I don't think I have the current skill set to get into some of these things.
So the reason I'm asking is we're talking about going to a contract with Garver. So my question is, would it be more feasible to hire somebody particularly for this instead of going to a long contract with a company outside? To be in that office with you?
To hire a staff individual. So
it's just a tool.
yeah, I'm certainly not opposed to it.
It's an expensive tool.
Right. it's, I think the problem you're gonna find is that there's not, just like engineers, there's not, city planners aren't readily out there right now. So you're gonna pay. And I don't think we need one full. I think what we're talking about is expended on an annual basis would be substantially less than a staff position. If we're talking about staff positions, I would be much more, I get much more benefit out of a GIS professional than I would, I think, a staff city planner. So I think it's kind of an either or. A city our size, it's kind of, I've seen them in the past, they either have a city planner with a consulting engineer or a city engineer, the consulting planner. So it's kind of a, once you get up a little bit bigger than us, sure, you may have both. I don't think we're there yet. I think, Sherwood actually they have a staff planner and a staff engineer. That's about the minimum size I see where you'd really benefit for both. But I'm not going to turn down staff if you want to, if you're.
But Adam, you're saying this is a as-need basis.
Yeah, this is an as-need basis. So
How
it's,
often do you see this a need?
So these items are the immediate needs. So these are the ones I've put on paper. And beyond this, I mean, I think as we get comfortable with the process, like I said, I know we got lots of changes coming out. We got lots of things we need to change. I would feel comfortable with James kind of guide us through it as a public hearing or two, with ordinances. And I've talked to Mary extensively, Mary and Mr. Dietz on, and I'm all for these changes. But, my job as staff is to keep everybody on the straight and narrow, make sure they're legal, make sure these things are vetted properly. And I know everybody's gung-ho, we want to get changes. My job is not necessarily to do, but I got to put the brakes on a little bit just to make sure we vet these things, make sure we don't, there's lots of unintended consequences of just doing this. I know the simple thing is, and I've been guilty of this myself, is to go out and just grab an ordinance from an adjoining city, say, oh, this is pretty good, I read through it, let's push it forward, let's change it to Jacksonville and move forward. But there's things we got to catch in that. Those are things that it's kind of the high level look at our whole code of ordinances that we need to kind of back up and tweak now. Now that we have some time, I want to do that. But and James and his predecessor were big advocates. They'll tell you, yeah, that's the simple thing to grab these ordinances. But you're not a Sherwood, you're not Cabot, so you got needs that are specific to you. So it may be a very similar thing, but he comes with the expertise of dealing with multiple cities. I come with a few background of dealing with a few cities myself, but not in this realm. I'm engineering and design and do have some planning a little bit. I am Melissa and I both just went through the certified Arkansas planning official, to which James was one of the instructors.
Excuse me.
Sure.
Mayor. What I'm hearing, and I'm not going to ask for you to excuse me, but
Sure.
My responsibility in this position is to make sure that funding is correct in long term.
Gotcha.
Don't we go to the municipal league and ask for their help whenever we do an ordinance? Help me out.
We haven't.
We haven't, but there's nothing to prevent us from doing it, correct?
That's correct. And that's why I say municipal league and Metro Plan are both tools in my toolbox.
Correct. So my question is, if those tools in the toolbox and the word you just used, we haven't, why would we hire somebody to do it when we have tools that you haven't used?
Well, I'm not necessarily hiring him to do. I'm hiring him to be as needed. So
But as needed for this amount of money.
There's not an allocated amount of money. So the money that we're talking about has already been budgeted under my consultant budget. So I'm not advocating to. I'm going to spend that. I'm going to spend that. That's why I structured this as on-call services. So I may not ever need James.
So if you never have to use James, you never have to pay?
Right.
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 Okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Now I have seen contracts. I had a similar contract with Cabot where, you know, there was a minimum allocation of 10 hours a month. That's, James, correct me, that's not this type of contract. We're going into this with no engagement whatsoever. But
So if
we went through the solicitation process and done everything correctly that we can pull him in if there's a need.
So if you never use it, we don't need it.
Right, we don't pay him.
So we can use municipal league, and then once they can't do what we want, then we can refer to him. Is that correct? Or
Right.
are we knocking municipal league completely out?
No, absolutely not.
So feasibly, we could actually do this, use the municipal league, and not go into contract and only get it when we need it? Or do we have to enter a contract to use them as needed?
No, you don't have to enter a contract with municipal league. You're
No, I'm
already,
talking about-
you're already members.
No, I'm talking about with James.
With James,
With Garver, let's say Garver, because we're not hiring James.
Right.
We're hiring, you're selling us James, but we're hiring Garver.
right.
And I've dealt with Garver in the past when I was on the water department.
Gotcha.
So that's why I'm asking these questions.
Sure.
Because like, you know, my comrade said, we don't want to vote into something and try to get something done, and it locks us in, and here we are again with people trying to.
Right. No, and to be fair, you can keep multiple RFQs active,
Right.
but we only received one. We had 3 companies pick them up. Garver's the only one that was interested and turned it in. Now, it just so happens to be, I know James and work with him, so it didn't bother me too much. But I'd say to do it, to structure it like I envision it, the on-call services contract is the simplest contract.
How long is the contract?
Until we terminate it.
And it can be terminated at any
Yeah.
time, right? From the
Yeah, I think anytime anytime by either party.
Let me,
Yeah.
Richard, hold 1 second if you don't mind. Bottom line in this, so you're saying in like a simple explanation, I think, Bishop, please correct me here if I don't want to put words in your mouth, so, there is no like retainer. We're not paying them.
Correct.
For their services
Okay.
that we may not use. It is purely if something comes up that municipal league can't help with or whatever else, we have Garver in our pocket then that we can pay for the service that we need then, but there is no expense to have that privilege.
Okay.
It's only if
Yeah.
we use, is that accurate?
Yeah, well, very well said. And just to give you an example, so we have a engineering contract RFQ with McClellan. That one was originally engaged in, I think, 2009. It could be terminated any time, but you know, the way they function is per project, you know, they give us a work order. So this will function similar. I said, so when I engage James, it'll be for kind of a specific, you know, James, do this. Most of these items I feel are pretty small scale, you know, are well under a $5,000 threshold. But we've made provisions in the contract, so if we get into a situation where it is well, this is a bigger, you know, this kind of bigger, it's gonna take some more time, it's got a defined scope where we can, you know, okay, we can define a scope and issue, you know, work order and have y'all, you know, review it more in depth if that makes you comfortable. But honestly, I most of this I feel is gonna fall under, you know, a few hours, you know, 20 hours time or something like that.
So Adam, I'm allowed to talk, when we originally talked about this, we were talking about using it to update our outdated codes.
Right.
Is that what we're talking about? 'Cause,
There's certainly one of the things.
well, that's the main thing that we were needing. I mean, if we need other things, then that's also what we need to do. 'Cause
Right.
our codes are 30, 35 years old, and if you really read them, you know, they don't protect the city at all anymore, and there's a lot of them that would hurt the city. So that's where we need to go into having
Right.
our codes, you know, revised, you know, consolidated, put together where they're all together. And that's what we need to have done, you know, and not long-term. That needs to be done, you know, as soon as possible to get that where
Right.
we need it to be. Because we can't enforce something when there's so many rules and regulations that keep showing up.
Conflicting rules and regulations,
Yeah,
might I
and
say.
that's what I'm saying. So that's what my idea was when we talked about this, and I know we've had discussions, is let's make sure we get this and have somebody that is versed on this and is professional and does it, and let's
Right.
get that going. And, you know, I'm good with that, you know, and some other things, but I'm like them, I don't wanna spend a ton of money, because our codes, you know, have been on there, they can be revised.
Right.
I mean, there's probably a lot of smart people here that can revise them, but we got a
Right.
professional that we're using. I'm good with
And
that.
to be very honest with you, like I said, I mean, I would love to have the time to go through, and I've started the endeavor, and I talked to Stephanie about this. I've started the endeavor probably
Yeah,
4 times now, going through and trying to mark stuff, and it is pretty overwhelming just to do it alone.
Well-
But when you're getting calls and pulled up, it's really something you got to sit down and focus on.
And I understand, that's what I'm saying. And an outside eye looking at it
Right.
is always good.
Yeah.
You know, when you're looking at, you know, anything you're doing, somebody's else eye on it might catch something in his opinion, and I'm good with that.
Sure.
And that's what I was hoping for. We could get the codes, you know, revised as quick as possible.
Now back to, that's what I was talking about, what you just stated, that you're overloaded, basically is what you said. And that's why I was asking, if we're doing it for the codes, we can't just use the municipal league and run it by them, since we're paying them?
Honestly, I don't know, you know, the scope of municipal league.
Well, that's what I'm saying, why don't we find out?
We
Before
certainly
enter-
can.
Before we enter into something like this.
I've got some questions.
James works with the municipal league as well, so James could speak to that if you'd allow him to.
So essentially, the primary planning service that Municipal League provides is they have Jim Von Tunglen on retainer. He provides basically a day a year to any city, and then you kind of negotiate some level of service beyond that. I'm extremely familiar with Jim. I mean, basically everything I know is owed to. I came down in 2007 and started working with him. So I'm more than happy or comfortable to work with him as much as needed or as possible. Additionally, with MetroPlan, we're working currently with the city of Wrightsville to help update some of their stuff, and we're kind of doing that in conjunction with MetroPlan. They've been a little bit overloaded, and so we've been helping them, and so I'm happy to work with that. In any capacity. The way the scope of services is set out with this, it's pretty much every service is when requested. And I'm a guy that comes from a municipal background. Before I came back to Garver, I was the planning director for the city of Conway, so I understand budget constraints and wanting to be very, very fiscally responsible. Essentially, the way that I view this and talking with Adam is functioning as sort of an extension of staff when that is needed. And if we get to a point where staff is needed, that's where I can step back, step away. That's sort of how I've functioned with the city of Sherwood. They didn't have a city planner. They got a city planner. And I've kind of been bringing her on board, and she's doing pretty well now. And, you know, there are some functions that I don't do anymore that I used to do, or there's things that I help with. Provided these kinds of services with Sherwood, Cabot, Bryant.
So do you, excuse me, not to cut you off, do you provide those services through Garver?
Yes.
Or are you doing it now?
Yes.
So you were talking about, is it Wrightsville you said?
Yes.
Okay, so they're using Garver to do what you,
Yep. Yes, sir.
so the municipal league cannot cover us if we need something without us going to a contract? Is that-
You'd have to have some type of separate contract beyond what Municipal League provides.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, point of information.
Yes, sir.
I'm spending 10 years on the Municipal League Executive Board. They do the same thing. They go outside and do the same thing he's talking about. Bring more experts in to help them out to make better decisions. Right. For all the cities they cover.
They do.
It's the same kind of thing. They do the same thing. And that's all he's asking for, the same thing. That's all he's asking for, the same thing.
Terry, 1 second. Dr. Moss, you were trying to speak a while ago.
I have a question, and I just heard this, so to add to it. The question was asked about a salaried employee to do a city planner and want a retainer. If we had a salaried employee, what would that cost? Just salary, not benefits, but salary. Because this is an on-call. Am I correct?
Yeah.
So if we
You
hired a
probably
city
picked
planner,
that. I would be guessing It's 80s, 90s, I mean, depends on the level of expertise.
It does depend on the level of expertise. You get somebody coming out of grad school, it's 65 to 75, in that range.
And what about somebody on retainer?
We were talking about, I mean, it's as needed.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, just going with the estimate of 20 hours using the highest rate that's on this planning schedule, you're looking around $10,000.
So specifically on my team, so we've got a team of 7 urban planners. They range in experience from brand new to, well, me. 3 of those are based in Central Arkansas. So my rate on there is that P4 rate. So that's when I'm not the P5. So.
I've got a question. All right, my concern is not necessarily going over the ordinance and updating the ordinances. My concern has to do with what's coming on the bottom half of the Exhibit A, scope of services. I keep seeing stuff about making provisions for Garver to enter public and private lands, perform necessary surveys. Again, surveys. You've got a list in here, price surveys for surveyors. Yeah, why are you talking about surveying when we got surveyors who know this town, that work in this town all the time, and you're offering us survey work, which is totally outside revamping the stuff? My problem is not rewriting ordinances. My problem is what comes on at the bottom half.
So it's the only actual services that we provide. When you look at that, Garver shall provide the following services 1.1, 1.2. Honestly, that is standard contract language that I just didn't delete all of it. It could be deleted if we wanted it deleted before you approved it. That'd be fine.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah. That certainly.
That would alleviate a lot of my concerns about what I consider to be a contract that's not limited in scope, whereas what we want is limited in scope.
Yeah, I think there's probably 2 on that list that actually would need to be there, being give thorough consideration to documents and other information presented, and then provide legal, accounting, insurance, counseling services necessary for the project, and auditing services as the city may require, basically.
My take on this is as needed. To me, that's as simple as it comes. I trust Adam to make the decision if he needs something or not. If it's an item in here that's on paper that he's not going to need, he's not going to call for that need. So I trust you to handle the needs as you see fit.
And I appreciate that. And I'm like James. I'm certainly okay. To make sure comfort level. I get on-call services are they're robust in nature, and they're a la carte, and they have all these things. So I'm comfortable saying, hey, you want to delete these, section 1.2 with the exceptions that James mentioned. I'm certainly okay with that because I don't, I get the perception, you want to cover your bases. So
I was going to say, with the council's permission or consent, I would bring up that we table this till next meeting in order to allow y'all to adjust that contract and bring it back before you with the shortened version, I guess, as you were saying, with the deletions of the parts that will not pertain to what we are going to do.
There's no need in that, Mayor. It's as needed.
Make the
Well,
corrections here tonight.
Or
I'm more than happy to. Yeah, I can go through it. To be honest with you, this is a contract form that is planning only. So
right.
They would not let the company provide engineering services through this contract because of with planning services there's a lowered risk, and so there's a different contract structure. So I wouldn't actually be able to provide. Yeah. I'm not an engineer, so I wouldn't provide engineering services anyway.
Yeah.
But
and just kind of a secondary thing, we actually have an active RFQ with Garver, accepted RFQ with Garver. So they were the accepted engineering firm to do the stormwater mapping prior to me ever coming here. So they've never, that consulting money that I have in my budget has been a carryover for the phase 2 of that stormwater map that they just hadn't had the time to get to, and we hadn't had, with Jimmy leaving and everything, that program kind of has subsided, but we've carried it over because we need to do it. So that's, we actually already have an engineering contract with Garber.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I work for Hercules Corporation, I work for DuPont Corporation. Those big corporations do the same thing. They hire people to look down the road, see what I'm gonna be down the road. They do the same kind of thing, yearly to yearly, they sit down and do the same thing. What I'm gonna do 10 years down the road, what I'm gonna do 5 years down the road, what I'm gonna do 1 year down the road. That's the same kind of thing that we're talking about here this evening. What I'm gonna do down there, just say you got the personnel, but sometimes you have to have that personnel be overwhelmed by the problems he got right here. He trying to look down the road also to see what's going on down the road. And this is just what the municipal league do the same thing. When he's on the board of directors there, they do the same thing. Look down the road to better serve the cities, what the cities need and all that kind of thing. All we try to do is look down the future, that's all it is. That's all it is. And you got some smarter people than what you are that do that kind of thing. Everybody does.
All right, with that being said, then, I am at this point in time going to entertain a motion to approve and adopt Resolution 848 in its entirety.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed?
2. Madam Clerk, you're good?
Good.
Okay. All right, that carries then. So, thank you,
Thanks.
gentlemen.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, your comments are noted, and I can assure you that I will, we will not take advantage of anything of your trust on extended scope of services. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Our final action or business tonight is discussion on Airbnbs regulations. Councilmember Dietz coming forth with that.
Pass this out to everybody. That's right. Once again, I'm just bringing this up to the council, that we have been working on this through legal, through Stephanie, through Mr. Mayor Jeff, and Adam. So I just wanted everybody to kind of know that I've had a lot of people that's been asking about it, hitting me up about it, because right now, we keep talking about what we're gonna do. Well, we have a lot of things that's going on that we have no control on. I believe that having something in place will help us a lot. My biggest concern is to know where they're at and to get them registered. And with some guidelines, which Stephanie has looked at this and is probably working on it, but North Little Rock's got one and they've been passing it. And I'm telling you what, from what I'm hearing from them through their attorney and through a few of the council members that I know that drafted this, it works real well. Because the things that they're doing, it puts the owners where their number has to be on the building. So if code comes up there, the owner has to be displayed. They can't advertise it. They have to get approved. They have a limit on how many cars they can have, on how many people they can have in every house. Which right now, I'll just be telling you honestly, we got some houses that are set up like that, and there's 10 people in them. There's 5 cars, 10 people, and they're 3-bedroom, 1-bath homes. That should not be allowed, and you can't police it all, but if we can get something set up on the record, this would cover it. I'm gonna be honest. And when they started this in North Little Rock, I happened to be in the real estate business, and we've had a lot of them people that were in them that want to move this way because they know that we don't have the rules and regulations. We do have code. Code can't enforce anything, but I just don't think we have enough regulation to police them. And I'd also like to know how many's out there in our city, and I'd like the city to be like North Little Rock, start getting $100 a year, and us to be able to go in and to check them out. That's part of this ordinance, but I'm just bringing that up, that we're working on it. Everybody can review it, look at it, but they're using it. They passed 5 last month, and it's working fine. So we need to draft off some of them that have the attorneys that's done it, and I think we need to get working on it. And I don't think we need to lag a lot of time. We need to get one set up.
Let me go back to one comment that you made in that. I would want you to clarify, please. You said code can't enforce anything?
They can enforce it, but they gotta know about it.
Oh, because you said code can't enforce anything.
No, I said they can enforce it. See, the state legislature, if you'll think about it, passed regulation. Yeah, well, I apologize. They can, and they should be. But the thing about it is, they don't know where they're all at. I mean, unless somebody, basically complains to them, they don't know. But there is a lot of people that are complaining. And I can list a lot of the properties if you want me to that are, but I didn't feel like this was the point to do it. I just wanted the council members to know that we are working on it, just like we're working on the code changes, and it's something that we don't need to wait on. We've talked about it a year and a half ago. We're still waiting on it.
Any other questions or discussion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
I just think that this is really interesting. Do we have a way to have this registry for rentals, or are we just discriminating on short-term rentals?
Captain Wright?
I think it's also very interesting that we are asking for these business owners to give any amount as far as getting on this registry. That's very interesting, but.
So at the current time, I believe several months ago, you guys actually passed an ordinance for vacant property registration that forced people that had homeowner or landlords that had vacant properties to register their properties with code enforcement, so we knew who owned what. And I believe you guys also passed an ordinance for apartment complexes to start getting business licenses. So just my take on it is code enforcement. It's the same as any other business in the city as far as having a license and operating that way. So
Everybody that has a business, I don't own a business, but I work at a business, I have to pay an occupational license every year to the city. I get a bill as a realtor. So I'm a licensed realtor, and the company has to pay a bigger one, but every one of us has to pay a fee.
Right.
And I want to know, I'd like to know where they are, and I know Code would like to know where they are. And you know what? If they're paying money and they don't pay the money, to me, they're not complying with the law once again. So it's not allowed.
And
if we're going to have laws, we have to enforce them, and they have to be enforceable.
may I say something else, Mayor?
Don't they have those on a site for Airbnb rentals? I do believe there is a site for those.
There's several sites, I guess, for Airbnb rentals, but as far as, and most recently, like with the nuisance board we had put in, as far as having that registry there, if something happened at that property, it would help the police department in determining who actually owns that property and give us a contact number. So if they're causing disturbances or whatever over there, it would allow us to contact them and let them deal with the situation as far as removing the tenant or whatever. So that would be beneficial as far as the police side of it going.
And there is no ordinance being decided tonight. This was just a discussion that Councilmember Dietz wanted to bring up, so.
I've just wanted everyone to kind of see what, our cities around us are doing to control it. And from what I'm hearing, it seems to be working real well. North Little Rock had got overwhelmed with them. So they're making the owner responsible, which they should be. And not all rentals are bad. I mean, it's the owners that can be bad, and not all tenants are bad. But the city needs to have some type of control on it so that we can maintain it in a professional manner, keep our city looking as good as it can.
That's a wonderful point, and I would again like to reiterate that if we're going to be making a precedent on short-term rentals, we should know where all of our rentals are.
Well,
I did want to give you all an update. I talked to Adam. I've drafted an ordinance, spoke with him, and I think this is one of the top things that he wants Garver to look at. Is that right, Adam? That's right. So it's in the works. It's just we want to do it correctly the first time.
Yeah.
Once again, we want it to be city specific. We want it to address our needs. And like I said, I'm all for pulling a model when somebody joins the city, but that needs to be tweaked and looked at to fit our needs. And I agree, you know, let's look at what codes we already have, what we can enforce, and make it mesh with what we can.
Right, because the vacancy code that was mentioned, that doesn't cover all rentals, that just covers vacant properties. So, like I said, I'm just trying to say, if we're going to be doing this for one, then we should be doing it for all. I hear complaints across the board on slumlords. I hear complaints across the board on just everything in general, it seems, in Jacksonville. So not all rentals are bad, not all short-term rentals are bad, but if we're going to be setting the precedent for one, we should be doing that to understand and know across the board.
I'm sure all of these comments that have been made will be taken into consideration, especially as legal looks at everything with this and continues to work on this project. I mean, this is not something that has been thrown together. Well, actually, we don't have it yet, but it is not something that's just been knee-jerk and thrown together overnight. So I trust our legal department, city attorney to do it and to do things and to do them right. So I will continue to do that. Any other new business or unfinished business, old business?
Do we have anyone who wants to address the council?
Do one?
I don't know.
No, do it, no, we don't. Any new business or old business?
Just asking.
If not, entertain a motion that we adjourn.
Let's cover our bases.
We are adjourned.
Mary,
Still being recorded, still being recorded.
your guy took care of